Hey, let's go, let's go, let's go. We're back in the building. NBA is back. I'm back with my family. What's happening, people? Good to see everybody in the live stream already this morning. I see a lot of happy people, a lot of folks out there who are grateful for the NBA making its return tonight. I appreciate everybody who's joining me this morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to rock with me, support me. Speaking of support, we did a big thing. The last time I saw you guys, I mentioned something along the lines of we're on our way to 5,000 subscribers. Well, while I was away, since the last time we've seen each other, we ended up surpassing 5,000 subscribers on the channel. So I just have to give it up to you guys, man. Big round of applause. Big round of applause. Can't do it without you guys, man. I cannot do it without you guys. So I appreciate everybody who has subscribed, who has those notifications turned on so you don't miss your opportunity to join me live every morning, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And I appreciate everybody for dropping all the likes on the videos. Our last video, we racked up the likes. I mean, it was close to 300. It was a lot of likes. Probably the most likes I've seen on any of these videos. But listen, gang, I appreciate all of your support. Seriously, I can't say it enough, and I can't thank you enough. And like I said, I've been talking to PrizePicks behind the scenes. I want to do a giveaway to celebrate 5,000 subscribers. I think it's only right. I think it's only right that we find a way to give back to everybody who is supporting the channel, to everybody who joins me every morning. So I'm thinking something along the lines of maybe some free entries to win money, maybe some promo credits, you know, something along those lines. I'm going to do some giveaways. We're going to give away some free entries to win some real money on PrizePicks, and we're going to do some promo money. I think we could pull both of those off if I ask nicely. If I ask PrizePicks nicely, I think that they would be down to help us out with that. Just as a way to give back, just as a way to say thank you and reward those who have been riding with me, for all this time. So let's go ahead and we'll try to put that together behind the scenes, and I will let you know how that goes. Definitely keep you posted on all of that. You will definitely be in the mix, definitely be in the loop, and you will not miss out on that opportunity to win some free entries for real money and some promo credits. So anyways, guys, let's go ahead and let's talk shop a little bit. I mean, what's been up? I don't know about you, but I've been dabbling in some other sports. I've been pretty hot with college basketball over the last 3 nights. I've went 11 for 13 on my college basketball fantasy points props. Last night was a good night. Ended up hitting a little 4 for 4. I flexed it, so it was a 5x on my entry. So we've been doing stuff like that. Some of the people in the community have been involved with PGA. We've been talking some golf in there. Golf's really starting to take off over on PrizePicks, so definitely check that out. NHL's been a big one we've turned to during this NBA break. We've been playing some hockey props. A bit of hit or miss, I would say, on the NHL. Got some work to do there, but otherwise it's been CSGO. MMA's been pretty cool. So been dabbling in all the different ways that you could play over on PrizePicks. But listen, we're here to talk NBA, and I'm glad NBA's back. I'm ready to get back to business here and make the second half of the NBA a good one. I really didn't get into too many All-Star game props over the All-Star weekend. Just not really my jam. I like to make informed, educated decisions, and it was a little difficult to do that, let's just say, with the way that the dunk contest went. I made a little money on the three-point shootout, but yeah, mostly avoided a lot of those games. So anyways, let's go ahead and let's break things down here. We've got a nice little medium-sized NBA slate to welcome us back. It's February 24th, a little after 11 a.m. Thank you so much for those of you who have dropped likes on today's stream already. Appreciate all the support. And we're going to be taking a look at the slate. We're going to be talking points, assists, rebounds, points, rebounds, and assists, some fantasy scores, some three-point props, some free throw makes, and some blocks and steals over on PrizePicks. So if you don't play on PrizePicks yet, now's a great time to do so. 100% instant deposit match still happening, still going down over on PrizePicks. You see the promo code floating above my head? Yeah, promo code Curry. There's a link down in the description below as well for you to get started today. So you put in $100, they'll match it, giving you $100. You'll have $200 to get you started for the second half of the NBA season. So let's go ahead and start breaking down today's slate, gang. We're taking a look at Number Fire here. They've got a nice little game center. So let's run through the games real quick. Shout out to everybody up in the chat. I see all of you in here. Thank you for the congratulations and good morning to you. If I have not said good morning to you yet, good morning to you. Starting things off here, we got a 7 p.m. contest against the Cleveland Cavaliers and Detroit Pistons. 208.5 points between these two teams, 6.5 point spread. So not a very high scoring game. Spread kind of borderline on that blowout type of thing. But the big one here, Lauri Markkanen is a game-time decision. He is expected to make his return for Cleveland. Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, and Karis LeVert are all out for Cleveland. So it's going to be Rajon Rondo and Isaac Okoro manning the backcourt. But it looks like Lauri Markkanen, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen, they're not really the twin towers. It's kind of like they're the triple towers here. The triplets. We're going to have all three of the big guys back. On the Detroit side, no real impactful injury news there. Moving it down to the 7:30 p.m. game here, the Boston Celtics at the Brooklyn Nets, 214.5 points. Pretty decent total, but the spread is 9 in favor of the road team, the visitors, the Boston Celtics. So it looks like Boston pretty big favorite in this game. Recently, we heard that both Robert Williams and Marcus Smart will be making their return back to the starting lineup for the Boston Celtics. So both of those players are good to go, meaning Boston will have their full complement of players, their full complement of roster. They did make a trade before the trade deadline. For those of you who may have missed that, they did trade for Derek White from the San Antonio Spurs. They also shipped out Romeo Langford. In return, San Antonio got Josh Richardson. That was the big get for them. So, yeah, Derek White coming off the bench. He should be a nice little sixth man. They also shipped out Dennis Schroeder and got Daniel Tice as well. So some interesting moves made by the Boston Celtics. Over on the flip side here, though, Brooklyn, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, and the newly acquired Goran Dragic. Yes, the Brooklyn Nets, they just continue to add quality players to their team. Veterans in this case with Goran Dragic. So no Kyrie Irving, no Ben Simmons, no Kevin Durant. Their big three continues to sit. Hopefully, though, we see those guys enter the lineup soon. I'm anticipating seeing all three of those guys play together and see how well they gel and mesh. Moving it down to 8 o'clock, we've got the Atlanta Hawks at the Chicago Bulls. 238-point total here. Huge implied total on this game. 238 points between these two teams and just a 3-point spread in favor of the Chicago Bulls, meaning this is going to be a high-scoring, up-tempo, fast-paced type of game. Chicago, 3-point favorites. This one doesn't look like it's going to be one that blows out. Doesn't look like it's going to be one that gets out of hand. So things are looking pretty good here for some overs. This could be a good game to target those types of plays. It doesn't sound like John Collins is going to play for the Atlanta Hawks tonight. He's the biggest piece of injury news for Atlanta. Over on the Chicago side, we're still without Lonzo Ball and Caruso, but the good news is Zach LaVine seems to be A-OK. He participated in a lot of the All-Star Game events over the past weekend. He was dealing with a little bit of a nagging knee injury, but I guess he's good to go. The doctors have cleared him, and so he will be playing tonight against Atlanta. So it'll be interesting to see how this game shakes out. A lot of firepower on both sides, though. Should be a very, very fun one. 8 p.m., Memphis Grizzlies, Minnesota Timberwolves, 240-point total, gang. 240 points. That's a whole lot of buckets. A whole lot of buckets being got tonight. 2.5-point spread in favor of the road team, the Memphis Grizzlies. Keep an eye out on Pons and Tilly. Not that they're going to be very impactful, but both of those guys are game time decisions. Dillon Brooks is still out for Memphis. No Dillon Brooks just yet. And then over on the other side, Wright is a game time decision. But all in all, it looks like both teams are going to have their full complement of players. Their normal starting rotations and rosters should be in play here. But this one's going to be a fun one. 240 points with a 2.5-point spread. Love it. 8 p.m. Phoenix Suns at Oklahoma City Thunder. Blowout alert. Blowout alert. Blowout alert. Phoenix at OKC. Phoenix should easily beat OKC if all goes according to plan. 218 points in this one. Phoenix 10-point favorites on the road. Sarge Kaminsky, Chris Paul, and Cameron Payne all out for Phoenix. So yes, you heard right. Chris Paul, CP3, is going to miss some time for the Phoenix Suns, which means it'll be Aaron Holiday, Devin Booker in the backcourt for Phoenix. So a little bit of a thin backcourt, we'll say, especially at the point guard position for the Phoenix Suns. Over on the OKC side, it looks like SGA is out. It does not look like he's going to be playing anytime soon. Dort is out. Williams, Jerome, Robinson, Earl, Muscala. And then you got to keep an eye on Derek Favors. He is currently a game time decision for the Thunder. So decent total, but probably just a first half only play for me, unless you think that somehow OKC makes this game competitive. 10 o'clock, Denver Nuggets at the Sacramento Kings, 232.5 points. Pretty big total on this one, 4.5 point spread. Pretty competitive spread as well. So they expect this game to be high scoring and close and competitive. We've got Kankar and Murray as game time decisions. Michael Porter Jr. out, but I don't expect Jamal Murray to play game. Otherwise, on the flip side, Sacramento, obviously before the trade deadline, they made a bunch of moves. Tyrese Halliburton's now an Indiana Pacer. Domantas Sabonis, once a Pacer, is now on the Kings. Harrison Barnes is still in town, but they also got rid of Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley III, Tristan Thompson. So they made some moves, and I think Sacramento, honestly, might be better for it. The whole Halliburton-Fox backcourt, I know it just wasn't working. That experiment just, for me, was not working. But they ended up opting to keep De'Aaron Fox over Tyrese Halliburton, which was a controversial move for a lot of people. Anyway, the last game of the night, the late night hammer, Golden State Warriors, Portland Trail Blazers, 223.5 points with a 9.5 point spread in favor of the Golden State Warriors. So this game, decent total. Not a bad total whatsoever, but the spread at 9.5 points is a little concerning. I think Golden State probably comes out and has himself a really nice game. SGA is back. SGA is back. Might be. He wasn't in the starting lineup here on number 5, the projected starting lineup anyway. But he also wasn't on the injury report. So I guess he was kind of out in the ether somewhere. But that's good. Appreciate you guys, chat. SGA is back. Well, that's good news. I wonder how much he'll play. That'll obviously impact the likes of Josh Giddey. I think those two do a lot of similar things out on the basketball court. Kind of a do-it-all. Both players kind of do-it-all guys. So, yeah, you might want to, I don't know, maybe pull back a little bit on Josh Giddey. We'll have to take a look at that. Anyways, Golden State will be without Iguodala, Wiseman, and Green. Nothing new there. Over on the Portland side, Lillard continues to sit. Ingles is out for the year. Sounds like Nas Little's probably out for the year. Eric Bledsoe still out, has not made his Portland Trail Blazers debut just yet. And the big one from the big guy himself, Jusuf Nurkic, is set to miss a handful of weeks. Apparently, he's got plantar fasciitis in his foot. So it'll be Trendon Watford manning the middle at the center spot for Portland. So they're running a pretty beat up squad out there. I mean, they got, Anthony Simons, they got Josh Hart, but otherwise, man, it's looking kind of rough these days for Portland after all the trades and moves that they made. So we'll have to see how things go. But anyway, appreciate you guys once again for dropping that little nugget about my man SGA. Bye-bye to the giddy prop, says Tony Ruiz. You think so, huh? You think it's the jig is up with Josh Giddey? Maybe we have to get off of him for a little while and maybe we go to SGA. I don't know. Anyways, let's go ahead and get down to business here. We're going to be looking at props.cash. Yes, props.cash making its return to the stream. We'll be looking at the last 10 hit rates, last 10 games, the hit rates for the last 10 games. There you go. I'm going to get it together. The last 10 games, we're going to be looking at the guys with the highest hit rates. So let's go ahead and do that now. So the first guy that stands out here, obviously, is DeMar DeRozan at 28.5 points. He's got a 90% hit rate over his last 10 games. 90% is quite a big number. So let's go ahead and find DeMar DeRozan here on PrizePicks. He is at 28.5 points. So if we go and we pull DeMar DeRozan up here over on props.cash, 28.5 points. You can see what he's been up to over the last 10 games. 28 against Toronto. That was the last time that he went under 28.5 over his last 10 games. But 9 out of 10 overall. You see his points per game average over the last 10 games, 35.8. Points per game average over the last 5, 37.4. But against Atlanta, 27.5. The last time he played the Hawks, he just had 20 points. But he did have a previous matchup against the Hawks back on December 27th where he dropped 35 points against Atlanta there. So we got to remember, Zach LaVine will be back tonight. It will definitely impact things for DeMar DeRozan. So maybe he sees his scoring come down just a notch. Taking a look at this a little bit further here, we're going to look at the DVP, the defense versus position. Over the last 7 games, we can kind of take a look and see what DeMar DeRozan can expect tonight against the Atlanta Hawks, how many points they're giving up to the small forward position. So this is a totally free tool. You can find this over on Fantasy Pros. If you go to Google, you type in Fantasy Pros, FanDuel DVP, this will come right up for you. But anyway, the Atlanta Hawks against small forwards over the last 7 games are giving up nearly 28 points per game, which is the first most. So the matchup is definitely an easy one or a friendly one for DeMar DeRozan. Now, he and Green kind of are interchangeable at the small forward, power forward position. So let's also look at the power forward spot real quick and just see how many points Atlanta is giving up there. We got to go all the way down to the bottom. They're giving up just the third fewest amount of points to the power forward position at 17.8, nearly 18 points. So difficult matchup for power forwards, but small forwards, the polar opposite. Really, really easy matchup for opposing small forwards. So let's go ahead and pull up a projection for you for DeMar DeRozan. For that, we're going to use Action Labs, which is part of the Fantasy Labs package. And I like to look at these projections just to get an idea of just how these models view DeMar DeRozan in this matchup. They got DeRozan projected for 28.6 points, which is, again, slightly more than 28.5. And we look at him on 4 different sports books, 4 different sites. He's at 28.5 points on 3 out of 4 of those sites. A betting favorite to go over, -120, -125, and -135 odds. Now, one site has him as high as 29.5, talking about FanDuel Sportsbook. But at 29.5, the public taking the under, -112 on DDR, DeMar DeRozan. So he's the first one that obviously made our list here because over the last 10 games, like we said, that 90% hit rate looking really, really nice. The next player we're going to talk about is Keldon Johnson, who at 15.5 points is rocking an 80% hit rate. Let's see if we've got Keldon Johnson up on the PrizePicks board just yet. He is not up, so we'll skip over him. But when they do post him, if they do post him, he should be considered. How about Saddiq Bey? I know he's up on the board. I just saw him. He's at 16.5 points, and at 16.5 points over the last 10 games, an 80% hit rate for Saddiq Bey. So we could take a look at him real quick. We'll just type in his name. Boom. And then you can see over the last 10 games for Saddiq Bey, he's covered his prop of 16.5 in 8 out of 10 games. That's an 80% hit rate. Last 10 games, especially 19.3 points, looking very good there. Last 5 games, he's averaging 17.8. And in previous matchups versus the Cavaliers, he's played them twice. He had 4 points back on November 12th. Back on January 30th, though, a more recent sample dropped 31 points on Cleveland. So overall, across those 2 games, he's averaging 17.5 points. Spurs don't play today. Well, that's weird. Why are they on Prop.Cash? Maybe they've got some something loaded up here from a previous day or something. I don't know. That's weird. Normally, they don't show up on that trends page if they aren't playing. So that's weird that Keldon Johnson made his way in there. Oh, well. On we go. Saddiq Bey looking like a pretty good play nonetheless. So forget Keldon Johnson. We'll talk about him probably tomorrow. Don't know why he showed up on the Props.Cash trends page, but I digress. Anyway, he is a betting favorite at -118 to cover 16.5 points. Let's take a look at the matchup here against Cleveland. We talked about Lauri Markkanen making his return. It'll be Lauri Markkanen, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen. Pretty big front court that Saddiq Bey will be matched up against. I think Bey typically spends most of his time here at the small forward position with Jeremy Grant back playing power forward. Obviously, they've got Isaiah Stewart playing center. So Cleveland, over the last 7 games against opposing small forwards, they're giving up over 20 points per game. You can kind of see where they rank, middle of the pack. Not overly difficult, but not overly easy for Saddiq Bey either. He looked pretty good, by the way, over the All-Star break. Saw him in that Rising Stars game. Man, he was looking pretty impressive. I'm going to maybe say something a little controversial, maybe say something a little crazy here. Saddiq Bey was kind of giving me like some Jason Tatum vibes. I know it's a reach, and I know he's young, and I know he's got a long way to go before he reaches sort of the potential of Jason Tatum, but he was giving me some like Jason Tatum vibes out there a little bit. maybe that's a little bit of a bad comparison. I don't know, but he was balling. Saddiq Bey was balling in that Rising Stars game. So, maybe he could get there. Anyway, Saddiq Bey, 16.5 points. Matchup looks pretty good. He's been getting the job done. Let's pull up a projection for Saddiq Bey. Got him at 16.4 projected points, which is really close to 16.5. This isn't a bad enough projection for me to say fade it. I mean, if he was down at 15.4 points, I'd say we have something to be worried about. But at 16.4 points, not too worried about it. We're seeing him at 16.5 across 4 different sports books, and on 3 out of those 4 books, he is a betting favorite to go over. So the betting public liking Saddiq Bey over 16.5 points. Let's take a look at some other ones here. De'Aaron Fox at 24.5 points. He's been covering this at an 80% hit rate. So De'Aaron Fox obviously has that backcourt all to himself with Tyrese Halliburton out of the picture, out of the way. It's up to De'Aaron Fox to get the job done. So Fox, 80% hit rate in the last 10 games at going over 24.5 points. Let's pull up his card here over on props.cash. You can see how things have been going. The last 10 games, averaging 25 points per game. Things have gotten much better, especially over the last 5 games where he's averaging 28.2 points per game. So he's seen a pretty big spike since Tyrese Halliburton has been traded away. The last 5 games have been very good for De'Aaron Fox. And you can see how he's done against Denver in previous matchups this season. 30 points per game average. Played them just once. This was back on January 7th, but the fact that he dropped 30 points on Denver is a very encouraging sign. So things looking very good here for De'Aaron Fox in this matchup. Let's go take a look at the matchup. Point guards against the Denver Nuggets. Let's see how many points per game that the Nuggets have been giving up to opposing point guards. We go down a little bit. They're giving up about 22.5 points, which again puts them like right in the middle of the pack. Not an overly easy or an overly difficult matchup for De'Aaron Fox. So it's definitely not going to be a fade due to matchup reasons for me for De'Aaron Fox. Now, last but not least, we're going to pull a projection up for you for De'Aaron Fox. Got it projected for about 22.7 points, gang. That is quite a bit lower than 24.5. So I would definitely say go out there. Some of these other free sites that offer player prop projections, compare this 22.7 point projection to those other sites, kind of get a consensus, where the other projection models are liking him. But 22.7 is a little bit scary, being that he is at 24.5 today. Now, another thing that's a little bit scary is that PointsBet has him at 23.5 points, which is a point lower than where he is at on PrizePicks. So their lines makers must seem to think that between 23 and 24 points is more of a realistic line for De'Aaron Fox. So you never like to see that, especially if you're considering taking an over on a player. When one of these opposing sports books out there has him at a lower line than PrizePicks, this might end up being an underplay. Now, 24.5 points on 3 different books, we are seeing the betting public take the under on De'Aaron Fox. So the projections have him going under. 3 out of 4 sites at 24.5 points, the public is taking the under. And on the 4th site, he's at 23.5 points, which is a point lower than 24.5. So despite his recent success, despite what looks like a fairly decent matchup against the Denver Nuggets, it looks like this might be an underplay. Either that or you're going to fade it. Thumbs down if you're going to go under on De'Aaron Fox, or thumbs down if you're going to fade. So thumbs down if you're going under, or if you're going to fade on De'Aaron Fox. Chat, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're thinking. He's been super hot, though. Super, super hot. As you can see by these game logs, he's been doing a very good job. All right, so we've talked DeRozan, Bey, Fox. We've got a whole lot of numbers of different players here at 70%, including Fred VanVleet, Jaren Jackson Jr., Harrison Barnes, Pascal Siakam, Zaire Williams, Ja Morant, Isaiah Stewart, Nikola Vucevic, Mikal Bridges, almost messed that up, Mikal Bridges, Dosunmu, and Javonte Green, all at a 70% hit rate for their points props. I will not go over all of them, but when we get to the Q&A portion, if you guys have questions about any of these other points props, let your boy know, and I will definitely get into those a little bit further. But those are the props that are standing out to me. Guys that are at 80 or 90% hit rate. So let's move it on over to the assist category and take a look and see what we've got there. So another guy that we've already talked about for points, Saddiq Bey. He is up at 3.5 assists on PrizePicks today. Not 2.5 assists at props.cash. He's covered this in 90% of his games, but 3.5 assists. We're going to have to take a look at this one a little bit closer and see what's happening here with Saddiq Bey. PrizePicks coming in a little bit hot with the 3.5 assist line. You can see his line is at 2.5 according to props.cash. Here's the cool thing about props.cash though. In those situations where a site like PrizePicks will put up like a custom prop, we'll call it, you can bump this up. Now you can see what happened there when I went from 2.5 up to 3.5 assists, right? 90% hit rate at 2.5. When I bumped it up to 3.5, he drops down to a 60% hit rate. So Saddiq Bey's assist looking a little bit sus, we'll say. A little bit suspect. Whenever we pull them up here. Now this is kind of interesting here. So I'm looking at his, oh, okay. This must be February 18th. WOR. Who is WOR? I'm looking at these logs here on PrizePicks and I'm comparing them to props.cash and it looks a little off. I don't know what that February 18th WOR. I guess that's like the rookie game. Maybe that includes a game log from the rookie game. Team Worthy. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's from the Rising Stars game. Don't know why they would include that in his game logs. I think that should be, maybe I'll bring that up to PrizePicks, but I think they should take that out. Anyways, that's why the bars are looking a little bit different here. So anyway, we'll just close that up. Saddiq Bey at 3.5 assists over his last 5 games, 3 out of 5, so a 60% hit rate. We look at the last 10 games, still rocking that 60% hit rate over the last 10, but the betting public at 2.5, they're eating this up, which is probably why PrizePicks has went ahead and bumped him up to 3.5. So let's go take a look at this matchup. Small forwards against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Oh, let's see. Cavs are giving up about 3.8 assists. We can round that up, maybe call it 4 assists. So the matchup's not terrible, but the fact that they bumped this up to 3.5, I'm going to just make a ruling here and say that Saddiq Bey is probably going to be a fade for me due to the fact that they've bumped him from 2.5 up to 3.5. But just to give you a projection here, he's at 2.6 projected assists at 2.5 assists on 3 different books. Massive favorite, -170, -165, and -160. So for me at 3.5, just a little too high. I'm probably going to go ahead and fade that particular prop. So let's see what other assist props are standing out. We've got Dosunmu, who's been hitting at an 80% hit rate, but this could be a trap. What do you guys think? With the return of Zach LaVine to the lineup, it might be kind of hard here for Dosunmu to get the job done. So let's take a closer look at him and see if this will be a play that we end up going to. I know he's been good to us in the past in terms of hitting his assist prop, but at 5.5 assists, let's see if we could pull this up here on PDC, props.cash. Doesn't look like it wants to load though. Oh, you gotta love the technical difficulties here. Let's refresh. Maybe we can get this going here. The wheel is spinning. Well, while we wait on that to make its mind up, let's go take a look at the matchup here for Dosunmu. Hey, it's our first day back. We're running into some technical difficulties. I guess these things kind of happen sometimes. Dosunmu probably operating as the point guard here for the Chicago Bulls. We go over to the assist column. We go look at the Atlanta Hawks. They're giving up 10.5 dimes, which is the 4th most assists to opposing point guards over the last 7 games. So in terms of matchup, I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than this. Team giving up over 10.5 dimes. So the matchup's looking pretty good for Dosunmu. I just worry that with Zach LaVine back, that maybe that cuts into some of his production. That's all. So let's pull up a projection here for Dosunmu. I got him projected for 4.2 dimes, which is less than 5.5 by quite a bit. 1.3 assists less than his line of 5.5. We look across the board here at 5.5. He is a betting favorite to go under on all 3 books. -130, minus 125. So despite the high hit rates, the public not feeling so good about Dosunmu covering at 5.5 assists. Oh boy. Oh boy. It says props.cash cannot be reached. Oh boy. That's not good. Anyway, we'll keep it moving here. A big man who's been hitting his assist prop at a pretty high hit rate, Steven Adams, 3.5 dimes. He is not up on the PrizePicks board, but if you can get him somewhere at 3.5 assists, 70% hit rate for Steven Adams. Again, don't know why the Spurs are up here. Jakob Poeltl, DeJounte Murray, not supposed to be up there today. But Jason Tatum is up on the board at 4.5 assists. If you can get him somewhere, 70% hit rate for him. DeMar DeRozan, 5.5 assists. He's been getting the job done, but he's down to 5 assists over on PrizePicks. You can see over the last 5 games, he's gone for 5 or more assists in 5 straight games, averaging 5.8 dimes in that span. So he's been doing a good job of dropping dimes. Again, I'm just a little worried with Zach LaVine coming back, how that will impact DeMar DeRozan. But let's go take a look at the matchup here against the Atlanta Hawks. We did like DeRozan quite a bit for his points props. I think he's in a good spot. In terms of assists, the Hawks giving up 4.2 dimes, which puts them like right around the top 10 most assists allowed to the small forward spot. So things are looking pretty good here for DeMar DeRozan. Let's go ahead and pull up a projection for him. I have him projected at 5.5 dimes. At 5.5 assists, we're seeing the betting public smashing the under though, minus 160, minus 155, minus 140. So the public not liking him at 5.5. So they're taking the under, which is probably why we're getting him at 5 assists here over on PrizePicks. So maybe you take the over on DeRozan at 5 and he ends up in a push or tie situation. Let's go ahead and take a look at another assist prop that's been hitting at a pretty high clip. You got Harrison Barnes at 60%, Nikola Vucevic at 60%, Marcus Smart 60%, Herder at 60%, Steph Curry 60%, Trae Young 60%. A lot of 60% guys. I'm not going to go through them all, but a lot of them. So we talked about the ones that are hitting at the highest hit rate. So let's take a look at some of the rebound props. Swig of water for me. Appreciate all you guys being here. And we're back. That's right. DFS Whispers. We are back. We're back doing some player prop research. Running into some issues, some technical difficulties, but what do you expect? What do you expect on the first day back after a little bit of a break? A 1-week break to be exact. Thank you so much for dropping all the likes though, gang. So let's take a look at some of these guys who have been covering their rebound props at a really, really high rate. The first one is going to be Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet is currently not up on the board though, but at 3.5 rebounds, 90% hit rate for him. Shoot, I don't even know if he plays today because some of this data has been kind of funky. Isaiah Stewart, another guy at 8.5 rebounds. He's been covering his rebound prop at an 80% hit rate. You could see over the last 5 games though, things have gotten a little bit more dicey. 2 out of 5. So just a 40% hit rate for Isaiah Stewart over the last 5 games. I'm starting to think that he is starting to be impacted by some of the players that they acquired recently. We do have to throw out this last one here, Team Worthy, where he had 6 rebounds. So we throw that one out, and then it's a little bit more palatable. 2 out of his last 4 he's covered. So 80% over the last 10, 2 out of the last 4, so 50%. Still not the greatest hit rates over the last few games. Anyway, we go to the center position. We know he'll be matched up with the likes of Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley. So not the easiest matchup in the world. We go down and we find the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're giving up 14.5 rebounds per game. 14.5 rebounds per game. Not an easy matchup. You can see where that ranks them, like just outside the top 10. Most difficult. So Isaiah Stewart, 8.5 boards. There is some upside here, being that Cleveland does give up 14.5, but I am a little bit worried about this particular matchup. So let's go ahead and pull up a projection for Isaiah Stewart. Beef Stew, as some of you folks like to call him. That's my favorite nickname for him anyway. Isaiah Stewart is projected for 9.5 rebounds, which is 1 rebound higher than where he is at today at 8.5. We look at him on 3 different sites, 3 different books. Not seeing any action on 2 out of the 3 books. He is an even betting favorite right now, meaning minus 115 over and minus 115 under on 2 of those books. But one book, we are seeing some action on the over, minus 125 over on 8.5 rebounds for Isaiah Stewart. Other props that we can consider for rebounds, Aaron Gordon will probably be another popular play. You can see he's got an 80% hit rate at 5.5 boards. AG, as I like to call him, from his Orlando Magic days, has been doing a pretty good job at rebounding here lately. And you open up his last 5 games, you can kind of see what he's been up to here. He's gone 5 for 5, a 100% hit rate, averaging 7 rebounds per game over his last 5 games. So Aaron Gordon going up against the Sacramento Kings tonight. Let's take a look at that matchup. Gordon, typically the power forward for the Denver Nuggets. Let's go see how many rebounds that the Sacramento Kings are giving up to opposing power forwards. 10.3. 10.3. This guy needs just 6 boards. So I would say that there's definitely some upside here. Kind of a top 10 type of matchup. Favorable matchup for Aaron Gordon. Let's go get you a projection on Aaron Gordon's rebounds tonight. I've got him projected for 6 boards, which is more than 5.5. So that's a positive. What gives me a little bit of pause here is that the public is taking the under on Aaron Gordon at 5.5 boards. We got 3 different books to reference here at 5.5 rebounds, minus 130, and as strong as minus 135 odds to go under 5.5 rebounds. So Aaron Gordon could be a little bit of a, I don't know why the public's taking the under, but I mean, the matchup looks pretty good. He's been getting the job done over the last 5 games. Going up against Sacramento, I mean, this game's going to be high scoring. Looks like it's going to stay close and competitive. I think he's worth a shot on an over personally, but what do I know? Looks like the public is going against the grain and going against what I think might happen. So maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, we'll go back over here to the hit rates. We got a couple of other guys here who are hitting at 70%. Steven Adams being one of them at 9.5 rebounds, 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. We open up his last 5. You can see he's gone 3 out of 5. So a 60% hit rate for Steven Adams in his last 5 games, averaging 10.4 boards. He's going up against Karl Anthony Towns and the Minnesota Timberwolves. So let's take a look at that matchup. Minnesota's given up over the last 7 games about 13.2 boards, which if you take a look at where they rank, that is the 7th fewest. So it is a difficult matchup for Steven Adams in this one. We go over here to Fantasy Labs. We type in Adams' name. He is projected for 11.6 rebounds. Let that sink in for a minute. 11.6 rebounds, which is 2.1 rebounds higher than where he is at on PrizePicks. So the projection models over on Action Labs loving some Steven Adams tonight. And it looks like the betting public is lining up for some overs on Steven Adams at 9.5 rebounds as well. Minus 135, minus 140 respectively. So the odds looking good. The public taking it. The projections are looking good. Hit rates not so bad over the last 10 games. A little bit more dicey, a little worse over the last 5 games. But all in all, I think he's somebody that you consider playing an over on. Who else do we have here today? We've got Nikola Vucevic. We talked about him, 70% hit rate. He'll be matched up against the likes of Clint Capella tonight. Last 10 games for him, 7 out of 10. Last 5, 3 out of 5, so 60% hit rate. Another guy whose hit rates have dipped just a little bit over the last 5 games. But let's go look at this matchup going up against Atlanta. Maybe this is a good spot for him to come back to life, so to speak. Atlanta, dang. They're giving up just 10.6 rebounds to opposing centers, which is the first fewest in the last 7 games. So this is the most difficult matchup that Nikola Vucevic could ask for going up against the Atlanta Hawks. So even without John Collins over the last few games, it seems like Atlanta's doing a good job of keeping opposing centers off the glass. So I'm a little bit worried here for my man Vooch. I'm a little bit worried for his well-being. In terms of going over 11.5 rebounds, it looks like it could be a tough ask for Vucevic. Let's take a look at the projections. They do have him projected for 12.8 boards. So the models on Fantasy Labs liking the over. He is at 11.5 rebounds on 2 out of 3 books. Now at 11.5, the public liking the over on Vucevic. They're taking it minus 135. Now he is as high as 12.5 rebounds on a third book. At 12.5, though, the public is betting the under there, minus 150. So 2 out of 3 sites have him at 11.5. They're taking the over at 11.5. But at 12.5, they're taking the under. So seeing some different lines out there for Vooch and his rebounds. Projections like him. Hit rates are pretty favorable, but the matchup is the worst matchup you could ask for over the last 7 games, going up against this Atlanta Hawks team. So we've talked some rebound props. Let's go ahead and take a look at the PRA next. We've talked points, assists, rebounds. Now we're going to kind of combine the 3, see who's been hitting their PRA at a high rate over the last 10 games. And we've already talked about him for points. And, it only makes sense. It's only right that we talk about him for PRA as well. DeMar DeRozan. Do not be swayed by this February 20th game. Again, we have figured out that is from the All-Star game, the All-Star break. So we could throw that one out. We look at the last 4 games prior to that. 50, 50, 49, and 47 PRA. So he's covered his PRA in 4 straight games. Again, this February 20th game, an All-Star game. We do not count that. Let's go look at the matchup. We've already liked DeRozan for points. Atlanta's given up about 28 points, about 9 rebounds. So that's already around 37 PRA. And we sprinkle in about 4 assists on top of that. And you're looking at about 41 PRA. So, he could get it done. The matchup, in terms of PRA here for DeMar DeRozan, there's a little bit of upside. I would say that it's definitely a little bit of upside, not a huge upside in this matchup based on what Atlanta's giving up. So if you wanted to play like DeRozan just for rebounds or just for points, I couldn't be mad at you there. They are giving up quite a few points and quite a few rebounds. Maybe you don't want to take the PRA with Zach LaVine coming back. Anyway, let's go get you a projection for DeRozan's PRA today going up against Atlanta. I got DeRozan projected for 39.3, which is super close to the 39.5 line that he's at over on PrizePicks right now. The betting public at 39.5 PRA, they are snatching up the over. Minus 125 to go over 39.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Let's take a look at some other ones that have been hitting at a pretty high clip. We talked about Isaiah Stewart's rebounds. Things have started to kind of get a little bit more dicey for Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart. At 17.5 PRA, he's done a pretty good job covering this number. At 18.5, according to PropStatCash, an 80% hit rate in his last 10. 17.5, again, we're going to throw away that February 18th game and look at just the last 4. He's gone 3 out of 4 or 3 straight games prior to the All-Star break at covering 17.5 PRA. So let's go look at this matchup. Stewart's going up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland's given up 21 points to centers over the last 7 games. 14.5 rebounds, so that's already 35 PRA. And then 6 assists, so that's like 41, 42 PRA given up to opposing centers. This young man needs just 18 PRA, so there is definitely some potential for him to go over. Let's pull a projection up for you on Beef Stew. You think if I type in beef, he'll come up? No, he doesn't. You must type in Stewart. They do not know what beef is on Fantasy Labs. So we're seeing him at 18.5 PRA on 2 different sports books, 2 different sites. They are taking the under there at minus 125. We're getting him at 17.5 on PrizePicks today, though, gang. So that is a point of value in the PRA column. And I do have him projected for 21 PRA. So things are looking pretty decent here for Isaiah Stewart. The projections seem to love him. He's got pretty high hit rates. The matchup, there's tons of upside despite, Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley. So I think that Isaiah Stewart could make for an interesting overplay at just 17.5. Again, coming in 1 point lower than where we're seeing him on some of these other books out there. Other PRA options maybe we should consider. Saddiq Bey, we've talked about him. He also looks like he's coming in maybe a little bit undervalued, we'll say, at 24.5. So let's talk about Saddiq Bey. Last 10 games, an 80% hit rate. The last 4 games, because we're going to throw out this team-worthy game log, that doesn't matter. 4 straight games, he has covered 24.5 PRA. So we're going to go look at this matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're giving up about 20 points per game, 7.5 rebounds. So that's like 27.5. And then like 4 assists on top of that, you're looking at about 31.5 PRA. So there's definitely some upside. Eric Anthony says, I know what beef is. Hey, buddy, this is a family-friendly show. You better stop that. Stop that right now. But yes, Saddiq Bey at 24.5 PRA. He's in a positive matchup here, one where there is some upside for him. So let's pull a projection up for Saddiq Bey. Got it projected for 25.1 PRA. So that is obviously slightly higher than the 24.5. And then the public also liking the over at 24.5. We're seeing some minus 120, minus 115 odds for him to go over at 24.5. Who's some other high hit rate guys here for PRA? Javonte Green, probably not going to be interested in him with Levine being back. Vucevic also up there at a 70% hit rate. What about Karl Anthony Towns at 37.5 PRA? Maybe we talk about him a little bit. He's going up against Steven Adams tonight. Don't know that I'm like overly worried about Steven Adams as a defender. The big cat, Karl Anthony Towns, 70% hit rate over the last 10 games. We look at the last 5 here, 3 out of 5. Actually, we got to get rid of that Team LeBron one, right? So 3 out of 4 out of the game logs we can reference. 3 out of 4, 75% hit rate. Let's go look at this matchup against Memphis. They're giving up about 24 points per game, about 12 rebounds. So that's like 36 PRA, and then like 4 assists on top of that. We're looking at about 40 PRA. So the matchup, there's a little bit of wiggle room for him to maybe go over at 37.5, but I don't know. It doesn't look like the greatest situation for Karl Anthony Towns. I got him projected for 39.8 PRA, which is about 2.3 PRA higher. And then at 37.5 PRA, he is a betting favorite to go under. So the public not liking Karl Anthony Towns, minus 125 on 2 different sites, 2 different books. Who else is standing out here today? Jaren Jackson Jr. at 25.5 PRA. Looks like he's at 24.5 over on PrizePicks. So we look at him. He's done a pretty decent job. Last 10 games, 70% hit rate. We look at the last 5 for Triple J, as I like to call him. Kind of reminds me of Triple H. For my WWE fans out there, suck it. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. That's bad for your health. Jaren Jackson Jr., Triple J, 24.5 PRA. He has covered this in 3 out of his last 5, 60%. Let's go take a look at the matchup here for Jaren Jackson Jr. Minnesota, not the most stingiest team in the world. Jackson Jr. playing the power forward position. Minnesota's given up 23 points per game, over 12 rebounds. So that's already 35 PRA, and then 4 assists on top of that. 39 to 40 PRA in this situation. This guy needs 25, so I think he's in a pretty decent spot. Let's go get you a projection here. Fantasy Labs, they've got him at 26.2. That's obviously more than 24.5. And then 2 different sites, 2 different books have him going over, minus 125 and minus 130. So he's in a pretty decent spot here going up against Minnesota, and probably Jared Vanderbilt will be the defensive matchup. Anybody else worth talking about? Well, I mean, there's a lot of other guys here. Dosunmu, 70% PRA hit rate. Josh Giddey, 70%, but we talked about with SGA being back in the lineup. Maybe we fade Giddey. Harrison Barnes, another guy at a 70% hit rate for his 25.5 PRA as well. So we've talked about a few different PRA options. Let's go ahead and talk about some 3-point takers and makers. Let's see who's been getting the job done from beyond the arc. From beyond the arc, we've got Andrew Wiggins at 1.5 with a 90% hit rate. He is not up on the PrizePicks board, though. Saddiq Bey is at 2.5 3-point makes. Seems like we're talking a lot about Saddiq Bey today. It's another one of those shows where Saddiq Bey, we cannot seem to get away from Saddiq Bey. Let's talk about him again. Shoot, why not? Prior to the All-Star break, he had went 4 games in a row covering 2.5 3-point makes. We look at the last 10 games, an 80% hit rate. So, I mean, he's been getting the job done, knocking down threes here. He's going up against Cleveland. Got to go look at the matchup again. Small forwards, we go to the 3 p.m., which stands for 3-point makes. Go ahead and sort that. And then we go down and find Cleveland. They're giving up 2.8 3-point makes to opposing small forwards, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th most. So the matchup's pretty good here for Bey. He could come out and knock down three balls against this Cavaliers team. Let's get you a projection provided by Fantasy Labs. I got Bey projected for 2.8 triples. And then the public, minus 135 betting favorite. They are liking the over on Saddiq Bey at 2.5. So a whole lot of Bey today. Whole lot of Bey coming up because he's been just really playing very good basketball here lately. So I can understand, with all the hit rates and everything, why he's been popping like he's been popping. Who else do we have? Kevin Huerter at 1.5 3-point makes. He is not up on the PrizePicks board, but at 1.5, 70% hit rate. Zaire Williams, probably not going to see him up on the PrizePicks board, but he's at a 60% hit rate. Aaron Gordon, 60% hit rate at 1.5 threes. Al Horford, 1.5 threes, 60% hit rate. None of these guys are up on the board. So, it's going to be slim pickings. Maybe you go Trae Young. Trae Young at 2.5 3-point makes, 60% hit rate in the last 10. We look at his last 3 games prior to the All-Star break. He went for 4, 4, and 4. So he had covered 2.5 3-point makes in 3 straight games. He even covered against Team LeBron, or for Team LeBron, or against Team LeBron. He even covered against Team LeBron, if you want to count that. Anyway, Trae Young's been hitting a lot of threes lately. That's the point here. So let's go look at this matchup. He's going up against the Chicago Bulls. This should be one of those games where Trae Young can get plenty of shots up, and hopefully they go in. Chicago, in the last 7 games, has given up about 2.1 3-point makes to point guards. That is the 6th fewest. So it is a difficult matchup. Could be a tough matchup for Trae Young. Let's get you a projection here. Fantasy Labs has him at 3.1 3-point makes, which is a good number. The betting public also thinks 2.5 is too low. They're taking the over. They think he's going to make at least 3 triples tonight against the Chicago Bulls. Like we talked about, this game is going to produce a ton of points, 238-point implied total here with a 3-point spread in favor of the Bulls. So I know the matchup doesn't look great, but this is one of those guys that can overcome what looks like a tough matchup on paper. I think that's fair to say. Anybody else worth considering? Well, I don't know. There's a lot of other 60% hit rate guys here over the last 10 games. I won't go over all of them. So, there's probably some other options. Free throw makes, we've talked about these in the past. The guys that I typically target for free throw makes are going to be high usage guys, meaning guys who are going to get a lot of touches, who are going to have the ball in their hands, especially in clutch situations. When it's time to take a technical free throw. You want the guy that's going to be the designated technical free throw shooter. You want the guy that they're trying to force the ball into his hands at the end of the game when those intentional foul situations come around. And it's not good enough just for him to be high usage and to get to the free throw line, but he's also got to make them. So you want a free throw shooter who's going to have a high free throw make percentage. So who are some of the guys that maybe fit that bill? Well, Jason Tatum, high usage guy. Jaylen Brown, also a high usage guy. Trae Young, obviously high usage and good free throw shooter. We know DeMar DeRozan gets to the line at a pretty high clip. He also makes them at a pretty high clip. Devin Booker, probably more ball handling, more usage without Chris Paul in the lineup. Maybe you go with Book over some free throw makes. That could be a good way to go. And then I don't know. Portland's going to be kind of tricky. No use of Nurkic. You think maybe his usage goes to Simons or Hart? Possibly, maybe, but those could be some other ways to look. SGA, he's always a high usage guy. Anytime he's in the lineup, he is going to get a lot of touches, so he could be a look for you as well. So that's just kind of my mentality with a lot of these free throw props. John Morant, obviously another high usage guy who gets to the free throw line quite a bit. Those are the types of players that I'm targeting. Jeremy Grant, low-key, does a pretty good job at getting to the free throw line as well. He is at exactly 4 free throw makes. You look at the last 5 games, he's gone for 4 or more in 4 out of 5. He does a good job of getting fouled and getting to the line, so he's another guy to put on your radar. Blocks and steals. We got a few blocks and steals to look at. Let's see if any of these guys show up here on props.cash. Jeremy Grant, Marcus Smart, Steven Adams, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Basley, and Fox. Yeah, none of these guys are really showing up as in terms of like high hit rate guys. I've told you in the past in some of these streams, I don't play a lot of blocks and steals. For me, I don't know. I just never really had any luck. It seems like one of those types of props where it's highly volatile, right? Very unpredictable, in other words. So I don't play a lot of blocks and steals. Probably advise that you don't either. And I'm not seeing anybody who's like just crushing their blocks and steals props at a very high hit rate. This will probably be something that's even more so like matchup based. But yeah, I don't know. I'd probably just stay away. I mean, we got Jeremy Grant here at a 60% hit rate at 1.5 blocks and steals. Maybe you go there. He's covered in 4 straight games. Maybe he's worth a look, but not my favorite way to play player props, blocks and steals. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Anyways, gang, we are about, an hour in. We're making pretty good time. Go ahead and drop some props that you guys are liking. I see a lot of chatter. If you have picks or props that you want me to look into for you, now's the time for you to leave those for me, and I'd be happy to check into those for you. Yeah, I'm trying to get props.cash to load back up here. Maybe they're undergoing some maintenance or technical difficulties. I don't know. Yeah, definitely pray for Ukraine, man. That's a pretty crazy situation. Keaton 22 is asking about some Devin Booker points. Well, I think he is definitely worth talking about. So let's do a little searchy search here using StatMuse. So we go Devin Booker points without Chris Paul logs. Somebody brought this up during the NBA break at how good of a job Devin Booker has done in terms of scoring without Chris Paul in the lineup. And it's been pretty darn good. I mean, a lot of these games are from last season. There's been one game from, no, actually, they're all from last season. But anyway, you can see how Devin Booker has done in terms of scoring the basketball without Chris Paul around. Let's go take a look at Devin Booker's point prop today. I think this will probably be a very popular option. He's at 28.5 points. He's going up against OKC. Now, some people are going to open up his last 5 games, and they're going to see a lot of red in there, and they're going to get scared away. But you got to dig a little bit deeper. As I've mentioned before in previous streams, do not just fall for the, are the bars green? Are the bars red? Is there more green bars than red bars? Okay, well, then I'm going to take the over, or I'm going to take the under. You got to dig a little bit deeper, okay? Those who research reap the rewards. Those who research will reap the rewards. So you got to step your research game up. Don't just open up these little last 5 games and make your decisions based off that. Devin Booker, without Chris Paul in the lineup, has done a fantastic job at scoring the basketball, especially when you look at the stretch of like 10 games here without Chris Paul. Again, this was from last season, so it's a little bit, not as relevant because it's not this season, but at 28.5 points, let's just count it down together. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll even include this one, 11. We'll say 11 games. The last 11 games without Chris Paul, he's gone over 28.5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 11 or 7 out of 10, 70% hit rate, or 8 out of 11, whatever that is. But anyway, you get the point. He scores better. He takes on more of a scoring workload without Chris Paul in the lineup. Now we go back to August 10th, 2020 against OKC, which happens to be tonight's opponent. Devin Booker in 29 minutes, just 29 minutes, scores 35 points against OKC. So yeah, I think Devin Booker's points are definitely going to be a very popular way to go. Let's just look at the matchup real quick. Shooting guards against OKC. No Lou Dort. It'll be Giddey. It'll be SGA trying to slow Devin Booker down. And I don't know that I'm really afraid of either one of those guys defensively. But OKC's given up about 20.2 points per game to opposing shooting guards. So, yeah, I think Devin Booker could could definitely be worth a look. We got our first super chat of the day of the second half of the NBA season, and it comes from our man, David Winker, aka Whodat. David says, Trae Young, first half points or fantasy points. Your choice with John Collins out. So he's like in both options, points or fantasy points without John Collins. And he goes on to mention that John Collins is doubtful, but you might want to wait and see before locking anything early. You can also play full game as well. So he's liking Trae Young for both first half points or fantasy points. Or if you prefer, you could take him in a full game format. So he's thinking Trae Young has a really big night. And it's hard to disagree with him. We think about like guys like LaMelo Ball, who probably, well, definitely isn't the scorer that Trae Young is. Had a really good game against Chicago. Pretty much any guard against Chicago, you should fire him up for an over. So I'm definitely on board with what David's saying here. To take it a step further, let's go ahead and do Trae Young first half fantasy points without John Collins logs. And then while you guys take a gander at that, we'll head on over to the NBA 1H, or first half, in other words, and see what his actual projections are. So he's at 13.5 points. And you can see that this season, in games without John Collins, he's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games without John Collins. And in those 7 games, he's covered in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 7. He's covered his 13.5 points. So very high hit rate. 6 out of 7. 6 out of 7, he's covered 13.5 points. Let's look at the fantasy score and see if the hit rates are better or worse than the actual points. 22.5 fantasy points. He's covered in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 7 as well. So that's why I think David is saying you could go points or fantasy points, first half only. Either one, doesn't matter. He's even saying full game probably in play too, if you prefer. So he's covered Trae Young 6 out of 7 for both points and fantasy points. So you could definitely look Trae Young's way. We talked about the matchup against Chicago. It's going to be an up-tempo type of game. They're giving up over 25.5 points per game to point guards in their last 7. So that's a nice, healthy number. And then you look at the fantasy points allowed. Over 55 fantasy points allowed. That is the 4th most to opposing point guards in the last 7 games. So definitely rocking with that, man. David, I think both look like you said, really solid look. Appreciate you dropping that off. Let's see what else we got here. Said, what's happening, man? Once again, it's on. Yes, peace to you. Peace to you as well, my friend. King Chris says, if Devin Booker doesn't go off or just has a bad night, then Oklahoma City might take the dub. Yeah, without Chris Paul in the lineup, with OKC getting SGA back, could be one of them games where the Phoenix Suns sleep a little bit on Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City comes out and surprises them. Young Bands is asking about some Anthony Simons 22.5 points versus Golden State. Talked a little bit about Simons a minute ago when we looked at the free throw makes. Let's talk about his points. We need the full game points, though. Full game points. He's at 22.5 going up against Golden State. No Yusuf Nurkic for the first time in a long time, man. Mr. Nurkic was Mr. Reliable for us. But yeah, Simons heading into the All-Star break dropped 29, 30, 31, and 31 points in 4 straight games. So it's definitely going to be, in my opinion, the Simons and Hart show. As much Simons and Hart as we can handle. So, he had covered 22.5 points in 4 straight games, 29 or more points in those 4 games as well. So Simons definitely was going off prior to the All-Star break. Maybe he comes back and picks up where he left off. Matchup, not the most easy. Golden State giving up just a little over 20 points per game, which is the fifth most difficult matchup, in other words, for Anthony Simons. I'll quickly pull up a projection for his points. We'll try to get to as many of your questions as possible. Again, don't let this be the end of your research. This is just the beginning. Take some of the information that we share here and, dig a little deeper on your own. But yeah, 22.5 seems to be the number that you're going to find him at on most sports books. 3 out of 4 sites have him at 22.5. He's at 23.5, though, out on PointsBet, which is an encouraging sign because we're getting him at 22.5 on PrizePicks, meaning 1 point of value in our favor for us PrizePicks players. But at 23.5, he's a betting favorite to go under minus 130. His projections, 19.3 points. That is not encouraging. That is not a good sign. At 22.5, one site, he is being bet over at minus 125. At 22.5, another site, he is being bet under at minus 116. So things are kind of all over the place with Anthony Simons. For me, I think I'm going to take the wait and see approach without use of Nurkic in there. With the trades that they've made recently, I think that there's just too many moving parts and pieces for me right now. I'm going to look for a safer route, maybe a more sure pick, we'll say. Something that's a little less chaotic. One that has a little less question marks, we'll say. So I'll probably take the wait and see approach on Simons. Todd, Live for Sundays, is asking about D'Angelo Russell at 29.5 PRA. He is not a name that has come up yet. He has not come up yet. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one for my man, Todd, a.k.a. Live for Sundays. He's going up against Memphis as D'Angelo Russell. 29.5 PRA. Has covered this in 3 out of his last 5 games, so it's a 60% hit rate. Not great, but not terrible by any means. Let's go look at the matchup. With Beverly playing point guard, D'Angelo Russell will spend most of his time at shooting guard. We see Memphis giving up 26.7 points per game to shooting guards. That is a great start. Over 7.5 rebounds per game and about 5.5 assists per game for D'Angelo Russell. So that puts him at about, we'll say 40, roughly 40 PRA. He needs 30. I mean, in this matchup, he could probably get most of his PRA from points alone. But yeah, Memphis not stopping or slowing down any opposing shooting guards here recently, last 7 games. So let's go get you a projection. I think so far, though, the matchup is looking superb for D'Angelo Russell. Now, surprisingly, come on, is this the PR? No, okay, that's just his points. I was about to say. There we go. His projections for PRA, 31.5. So he's 2 PRA higher on Fantasy Labs projections than his prop line of 29.5. And at 29.5 out on DraftKings, minus 140 betting favorite to go over at 29.5. So yeah, I think D'Angelo Russell is in a great spot against the Memphis Grizzlies. We already talked about this game being one of those ones that's going to be high scoring. 240 points on the board, 2.5 point spread in favor of Memphis. Tons of points to be scored here. The game should go 4 quarters, so the starters, like Russell, should see the floor for all the minutes that they can handle. Let's see what else you guys are mentioning here. I like that one, though, Todd. I think that is a good look. Young Bands is pointing out DeAndre Ayton points. DeAndre Ayton points. Now, he is a guy that I have not looked into to see how things shake out for him without Chris Paul in the lineup. May not be too impactful, but let's go take a look and see what happens here. So we go DeAndre Ayton points without Chris Paul logs. And this is StatMuse, by the way, gang. If you've never seen or used StatMuse before, really helpful tool to take care of some of those situations like this one where you're wanting to see how a player performs when another player is like out of the lineup, or if you're looking for like first half only, StatMuse can really help with that as well. So StatMuse, really cool tool. Now, I will say, just looking at the last 5 games that DeAndre Ayton's played without Chris Paul, he's only covered 16.5 points in 1 out of 5. So it's not an overly sexy game log by any means. Now we look at games 6 through 10. He covered in 1, 2, 3. So he's got like a 40% hit rate in his last 10 games in games without Chris Paul. So it's not great, man. It's not a super high hit rate or anything. But the matchup might be beneficial for DeAndre Ayton. If we go look at the last 7 games, Phoenix against OKC. OKC's given up over 26 points per game to opposing centers. So 26 points. They're also giving up over 18 rebounds, which is worth mentioning. Also giving up 2.5 steals and 3 blocks. So, I mean, you could play Ayton, but maybe you play his fantasy points instead. OKC's given up over 65 fantasy points per game, the second most to opposing centers in the last 7 games. So, we're not seeing a major uptick for Ayton in terms of points. So for me, maybe I go fantasy points instead of just pure points. Hopefully that answers your question, Mr. Young Bands. Eddie's mentioning some Seth Curry over on assists. Now, Seth Curry over assists was a thing that we went to a lot when he was a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, if you've been out for the last couple of weeks, Seth Curry was traded. He is no longer a Philadelphia 76er. He is now a Brooklyn Net. Now, 4.5 assists, I don't know if I like it quite as much now that he's on the Nets. I think his role right now, especially with Kyrie, KD, Ben Simmons, Joe Harris, and everybody else that's out for Brooklyn, I think Seth Curry's role is more of a scorer. Now, that's not to say that he can't get 5 or more assists. He has done that in a couple of games here recently, but I just think for me, I like him more for like points or 3-point makes or something along those lines. I'm looking to take maybe something where he's putting the ball in the hoop rather than setting other guys up to score. So Seth Curry, we'll call him the shooting guard. Patty Mills probably more the point guard. We'll take a look at this matchup here against the Boston Celtics. Boston, they're giving up about 3.6 assists per game over the last 7 games, which is the second fewest to shooting guards. So this is the second most difficult matchup here in the last 7 games for Seth Curry. Does not bode well. Does not make me feel warm and fuzzy inside when taking some Seth Curry assists. Let's go ahead and get you a projection, though. We're not talking about you, Steph. We're talking about Seth, your little brother. 3.8 projected assists, which is less than 4.5. And then at 4.5 assists on 3 different sites, he is a betting favorite on at least one of those sites. The public is taking him over at -120. So not my most favorite prop. Again, I just think his role's a little different now with Brooklyn. The matchup, of course, not looking good as we just saw against Boston. So I don't know. I'm going to stay off of it. I'm going to stay away from that one. Duncan is saying Marcus Smart's points, good matchup and pace. So he's liking some Marcus Smart over on points, I'm assuming, against Brooklyn. He's at 11.5 points. Last 5 games, I mean, he's gone over this number in 3 out of 5. We'll call it a 60% hit rate for Marcus Smart, averaging 13.4 in that span. Let's try to speed through some of these because I know there's a lot of questions out there that are waiting patiently for answers. Brooklyn, in terms of points allowed to the point guard position, they're giving up over 27 over the last 7 games. It'll be Patty Mills. It'll be Seth Curry versus Marcus Smart today. Not really worried about either one of those guys in terms of defense. So I can get on board with you potentially taking an over on Marcus Smart against a team that's giving up the second most amount of points to point guards in that span. So let's go take a look here. We got, not there, here. Let's go pull up a projection for Marcus Smart. We got Smart projected for exactly 11.5 points. So again, you can cross-reference his projection for points on some of these other sites, Number Fire, Betting Pros, RotoWire, another one. But I've got him at 11.5, but the public is taking the over on most sites, -120, -115, and as high as -125. So I could definitely rock with that. What else are you guys liking here? Trying to get through as many as I can. Sorry if I don't get to you. Super chats, again, the best way to get your question answered for sure. But I'm going to try and get through them as quickly as I can and as many as I can. Travis A is thinking some Cade Cunningham under PRA. He's going up against Cleveland. We'd already talked about all the injuries in the Cleveland backcourt. No Garland, no LeVert. Sexton obviously has been out for a long period of time. So it'll be Cade Cunningham against Rajon Rondo. Not really worried about that. Cade Cunningham against Isaac Okoro potentially. Not really worried about that either. But you're wanting to go under on Cade Cunningham at 26.5 PRA. The last time he covered was against Boston. February 16th, last game before the All-Star break. Again, we have to throw out his February 18th game log because that was against Team Gary Payton where he had 24 PRA. That was a Rising Stars game. That doesn't count. That doesn't mean anything here. So 1 out of his last 4, or a 25% hit rate. So taking a look at Cade Cunningham against Cleveland. Again, their backcourt kind of beat up. So who knows what really happens here. But I can tell you this. Cleveland is giving up over 26.5 points per game to opposing point guards. So they're giving up 26.5 points. His PRA is at 26.5. So on average, they're giving up as many points as his entire PRA line combined, which makes me even more uncomfortable with taking the under on Cade Cunningham. So 26.5 points allowed over the last 7 games, plus about 14 to 15 rebounds and assists combined. So yeah, about 40 plus, 41 plus PRA. I can't do it. I can't recommend that you do it either, taking the under on Cade Cunningham. I'd rather you fade and just look for a better play, personally. The matchup just looks too good. It looks too good for Cade. Let's get you a projection. Got him going for 25.9 PRA. I will say this, he is at 27.5 PRA on a couple of different sports books. 27.5 is 1 point higher than the 26.5 that we're seeing him at here on PrizePicks. So we are getting a point of value. If you wanted to take the over at Cade Cunningham at 26.5, I ain't mad at it. Now at 27.5, the public is taking the under. So if he was at 27.5, I would say it'd be a little bit more difficult, but 26.5 is doable. What else we got? Peachy Clean, you are already in line with my man David on that Trae Young over first half points. Looks like a good way to go. You also are liking some Devin Booker over first half points. I think we talked a little bit about Booker earlier. I think he's looking like a good play without Chris Paul. So I ain't mad at either one of those, Mr. Peachy Clean. FN props guy. He's liking some D'Angelo Russell's threes versus Memphis. Well, we talked about Russell being in a very good spot tonight against Memphis. I think his PRA is probably in play. His assists, his rebounds looking good. He's also mentioning Clint Capella's rebounds versus Chicago. Check out past games and projections, please. Well, let's start with that D'Angelo Russell 3-point prop. I'll just take one because we got so many questions piling up here. D'Angelo Russell, though, at 2.5 3-point makes. You can see what he's done over the last 5 games. 60% hit rate, averaging 3.4 3-point makes in that 5-game span. Looking at this matchup, a lot of things looking very good for D'Angelo Russell against Memphis tonight. We talked about how good the points were looking, the rebounds were looking, the assists were looking. His 3-point makes, they're giving up about 3.5 3-point makes to shooting guards. Also a pretty good spot, which is, right around the top 10 most. So, soft matchup for D'Angelo Russell if you consider him the shooting guard, which I do. Across the board, looks like a really good matchup for him. So I could definitely see where you might get excited about playing some D'Angelo Russell overs tonight. I do have him projected at 3.2 triples. And at 2.5, the public also liking D'Angelo Russell, minus 140 to go over. They think he'll make at least 3 3-pointers tonight. Mr. Effin Props Guy. Hopefully that helps you out. Eddie, Evan Mobley points. You guys check into that one. Evan Mobley could be in a good spot going up against Detroit tonight. Try to get to some other folks' questions here. Eddie, I appreciate you dropping that though. Craig Fields, I like Drummond rebounds at 10.5 over against Boston and Ayton rebounds over 10.5 versus OKC. We've talked about Ayton already for fantasy points. I think he's in a really good spot. So obviously if you're liking him for rebounds, somebody else was liking him for points. I think his fantasy points probably in play. But Andre Drummond, we have not talked about at all. So maybe we can explore these Andre Drummond rebounds a little bit more. Is he up on the board? Oh, there he is. I almost didn't recognize him in that Philadelphia 76ers jersey. Anyway, Andre Drummond, 10.5 boards. Listen, 1 out of his last 5 games he has covered. Now he's going up against Robert, the Time Lord Williams, who is back in the lineup for Boston. Al Horford, obviously still there for Boston. So he's going to have his work cut out for him against 2 pretty formidable big men. That front court for Boston ain't no joke. Plus you got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, both of those guys, pretty darn good rebounders in their own right at the forward positions. So Andre Drummond playing center. He's going up against Boston. Boston's given up over 18.3 rebounds per game in the last 7 games, which is the 6th most. So the matchup is actually a good one, despite Robert Williams, despite Al Horford. Looks like a positive or plus matchup for Andre Drummond, or as I like to call him, Andre the Giant. Yeah, a lot of wrestling references for me. You're welcome for that. Andre Drummond's projected rebounds, 10.9 rebounds. Let's round it up. Let's call it 11, which is exactly what he'll need tonight, is at least 11 boards. Then at 10.5 rebounds on 2 different sites, both sites seeing action on the over, minus 125. So yeah, I could get down with that, Mr. Craig. Appreciate you being here. One of our Patreon members, Craig, leaving a nice little gem for you guys to explore a little bit further. My name's CJ. We got JC, or as I like to call him, Jarquavius Chancellor. I think I said that right. And if I didn't, well, welcome to the show, baby. I'm bad at messing up names. No, I'm good at messing up names. See, I can't even get that right. Anyway, you're liking some Jokic over 13.5 rebounds. Let's go find Joker. 13.5 versus Sacramento, so he'll be matched up against the likes of Domantas Sabonis, maybe a little bit of Harrison Barnes, Mo Harkless. Not really worried about any of those guys. I think Jokic could be in a good spot here. We see what he had done leading up to the All-Star break, 16, 15, 15, and 17. Now he gets Sacramento tonight. So let's go look at this matchup real quick. Trying to buzz through as many of these as I can, guys. We are definitely reaching the end, though. Almost a 90-minute show. Definitely getting to the end, though. I'm going to try and get to a few more, and then we'll call it quits for today. Then we'll be back tomorrow to do our darn thing once again right here at 11 a.m. But Sacramento, over the last 7 games, giving up just 13.8 rebounds. That is the 9th fewest. So this is the 9th most difficult matchup for centers and rebounds. So surprisingly, they're doing a pretty good job. So maybe we don't go to Jokic for rebounds. Maybe you take like his points instead. I mean, they're giving up 27 points to opposing centers, which is the 4th most. That might be a more exploitable matchup going points. Or you could also look at fantasy points. They're giving up about 56 fantasy points to centers over the last 7 games as well. Anyway, you're asking about rebounds. Let's get a projection. I got Jokic projected for 13.9, which is slightly more than the 13.5. We are seeing him out on 2 out of 3 sports books. 2 out of 3 books. He's at 14.5 rebounds. Nobody's betting the over at 14.5. But the fact that the lines makers felt confident in Jokic in this matchup to put it at 14.5, maybe there's a little value there. Now at 13.5, people are taking the over, minus 145 to go over. So the matchup doesn't look great, but if anyone can overcome a matchup, it's probably going to be this guy. Big Yoke. Nikola Jokic. Who really killed Bob Saget? Oh man, you're asking the hard hitting questions. I cannot give you game logs or any information on that. So I don't know. I plead the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth. I have no idea. That is a hell of a question, though. Where'd that come from? Fabrizio Dominguez wants to know about Zach LaVine's points. We have not talked a whole lot about Zach LaVine other than the fact that he's back. He's in the lineup. Apparently, he visited some specialists about his knee. His knee's feeling good. Take a look at the last few games for LaVine. It's been a little bit of up or down, hit or miss. 15 against Toronto, 32 against Phoenix, 27 against Charlotte, but just 12 against Minnesota. So we're getting a pretty soft line here on Zach LaVine at 23.5. I hope he truly is feeling good. Could be some risk though. I mean, how bad was his knee bothering him to the point where he had to go see 2 different specialists about his knee? Positive results apparently though from those meetings, from what I've read. Now the matchup is looking really good here for point guards against Atlanta. They're giving up over 26 points per game to point guards. We'll also look at shooting guards where they're giving up over 22, nearly 23 points per game. So I would say that this is a plus matchup for LaVine. I'm a little bit worried about that knee though. But if the doctor said it's okay, well then it's okay by me too, I guess. He is at 26.5 projected points. That is 3 points higher than the 23.5 we have him at over on PrizePicks. But at 23.5 on 3 out of 4 sites, the public is taking the under on Zach LaVine at 23.5. Matthew, thank you so much for leaving that little sticker for me. He wants to know, any college basketball today? Well, we won't be talking about any college basketball here on the live stream, but I will say this, as I mentioned before, last few nights have been really sweet on some college basketball fantasy points props for me. Like I said, 11 out of 13 picks for me have hit. I don't know if I'm just getting really lucky or what, but yeah, we'll run some fantasy points projections and props and see what we can come up with, and I will definitely share those with you in the Patreon Discord channel. Jay to the Rome says that Cade under is a trap. Yeah, it's just looking too good. I mean, against Cleveland, I ain't gonna mess with it. Derrick Rose over PRA. Well, that is an interesting one. That is an interesting one. Is Derrick Rose back? I know Kemba Walker, guys, if you haven't heard, Kemba Walker has been pretty much ruled out for the rest of the season for the New York Knicks. They've agreed to go ahead and shut Kemba Walker down. Don't know why. Just the whole thing with Kemba Walker and the New York Knicks has not really worked out whatsoever. I don't know if it's Tom Thibodeau. I don't know if it's Kemba Walker. I don't know what's going on. But that whole situation has not been what I expected. I thought Kemba Walker was going to be sort of like a key piece to kind of push them over the hump. This man has been shut down for the rest of the season. Completely healthy too, by the way. Kind of crazy. Anyway, Derrick Rose, PRA. Is he playing? That's my question. Is Derrick Rose playing? He's not even up on the board. So, I mean, I'm going to just say no. I don't know. No. Derrick Rose, no. Chuck Rose says, check into that like button. What do you mean? You want people to hit the like button? All right, well, you heard him. Hit that like button. Hit that like button then. King United is asking about Kevon Looney's first half fantasy points or points. Well, I have went to Kevon Looney for some first half props in the past and have had some success with them. But I have not thought about Kevon Looney today for any length of time or period of time. He's going up against Portland. No use of Nurkic. So it'll be Trenton. Is that how you say his name? Trenton Watford? Yeah, we ain't really worried about him. But yeah, Kevon Looney at 11.5 fantasy points. That would probably be the way that I would go, just because he is good at collecting rebounds. Could probably sprinkle in a couple of points, few points here or there. But yeah, Kevon Looney for me would probably be a first half only fantasy points play. Now we look at Portland, last 7 games, fantasy points. They are giving up 53.3, which sounds like a lot. And I mean, it is, but you kind of look at where they rank. They're one of the more difficult teams. But those games were with Yusuf Nurkic. Yusuf Nurkic is now out of there. So maybe you go to Kevon Looney. Looking at the points, they're giving up about 22.6 points as well. So I think points or fantasy points, if you want to go first half only because of a blowout risk, that could be a move. Booker PRA. Sorry, Matthew, you did ask about that. I totally almost forgot about you. Booker PRA. Let's take a look. We already talked Booker's points without Chris Paul. Maybe we could just backtrack here. All right. So we could look at the PRA for Devin Booker. Points plus rebounds plus assists. And this will give you StatMuse. Devin Booker, you do points plus sign, rebounds plus sign, assists plus without Chris Paul logs. And then you get these results here on StatMuse. Let's go see what his PRA line is at today. He's at 38.5. Over the last 5 games, he is, last 4. We got to get rid of that stupid February 20th game log. Anyway, 4 straight games, he has gone under 38.5. Obviously, that was with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is out, going to be out for a period of time. So his PRA at 38.5. He is covered in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight games without Chris Paul. These are all from last season, not this season, last season. We go back and look at games 6 through 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He covered in 1, 2. So overall, last 10 games, 7 out of 10, a 70% hit rate at covering 38.5 PRA without Chris Paul. Looking at the matchup here, he's going up against OKC. Shooting guards, they're giving up about 20 points, about 6 rebounds, so that's 26, and about 4 assists. So that's really not that great in terms of PRA in this matchup. I mean, that's like 30 PRA. So he's going to have a really good game. And by really good game, I would imagine that he's going to have to score an above average type of night from, points, from a points perspective. He's going to have an above average type of night for points. Projections, I've got him at 36.9 PRA. We'll call it 37, which is not enough to get the job done. Here's something very interesting, though, about this prop. He is at 38.5 on BetMGM. They're taking the over at 38.5. DraftKings has him at 40.5 PRA. 40.5 PRA. He is at 38.5 over on PrizePicks. That's 2 PRA of value on PrizePicks. You do not see this very often. Very interesting. I know he's not projected well. His hit rates are pretty good, though. 7 out of his last 10 games without Chris Paul, all from last season. He covered 38.5. But the fact that they have him up at 40.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook, and he's at 38.5 on PrizePicks, could be some value. Could definitely be some value. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers saying Kemba Walker's washed. Hate to say it, but it might be true. I thought maybe they should trade Kemba Walker for John Wall or something. Give John Wall a new lease on life, something to play for, send him up to New York. I don't know. Anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here. It's been a heck of a return back here to YouTube and being able to chop it up with you guys. An hour and 40 minutes in. Hopefully we landed on some winning picks. Had some technical difficulties earlier in the show. We got past those and things kind of smoothed out. We got another show tomorrow, 11 a.m., same channel, same time. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't yet. make sure that you are hitting that like button on your way out as well. And we'll keep the channel growing. We'll keep things flowing. And I'm going to talk to PrizePicks and see what we can work out. I want to give away some free entries and I want to give away some promo credits. That's what I'm going to try and shoot for. I'll let you know how things go tomorrow when we talk again, okay? Until then, thank you so much for being here. We'll catch you then. Good luck tonight. Peace out.